morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're so excited to be hosting our November fireside chat. I'm absolutely excited to host Miss Precious Gondwe, who is just an amazing entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, lawyer extraordinaire. And I've been following her for the longest. And I'm just so thoroughly impressed with who she is, what she's doing, and the bold vision that she's cast for herself. And Precious, thank you for making time for us today. I know for our viewers who are used to us being on a Saturday, Precious is so busy, y'all. We had to catch her on a Friday. And she is an award winning lawyer and she has more awards to receive this weekend. So we're happy that she's making time for us today. So welcome to our podcast, Precious. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mumba. The pleasure really is all mine. And I've seen also the work you do, and I really admire these conversations you're having because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, iron sharpens iron. And that's why I couldn't say no. And I had to juggle things around just to make sure that we don't miss each other today. I'm deeply honored to be on this podcast today.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who are watching us, please tell us where you're watching us from. We're excited that you're here. And if you have any questions for Miss Gondo as we're having this conversation, put them in the chat. I'll be able to follow along. So, Precious, tell us, who is Precious Gondwe?
Oh, thank you so much. Every time I'm asked to represent, or rather, introduce myself, I
Mhm.
always have a moment where I have to ask, in what capacity are we having a conversation?
Tell us
Um,
who you are, where you were born, where you went to school. How did you
yeah,
decide to be a lawyer? What was
yeah.
like,
Thank
and
you so
how you
much.
gotten here.
Thank you very much. So, to others, I'm known as a lawyer, and I've been very privileged to have been honored several times with
Mhm.
different awards across Africa. And one of them being really the inaugural one I received just in COVID in 2020 as a top 30 most influential lawyer in Africa. And this
Oh my
was
God, let's put a
something.
plug on that. Top 30 most influential lawyers in Africa. Let's put a period right there.
So, and this was, you can imagine, and this was coming all the way from Nigeria, and it's up northern Africa, and I'm down south. And
Yeah.
to simply have people acknowledge you as a
Mhm.
young female, having started up their own practice just about 2 years before that award was really
Mhm.
humbling. But to others, definitely, I am known as a humanitarian, and of course, I do a lot of charity work.
Yeah.
Um, to be honest, for me, my profession fits to my love to serve and to honor people. So, in understanding the law, in understanding the local policies, I'm
Mhm.
then able to say to humanity, listen, these are where the gaps are. This is what you need to look out for. If
Mhm.
you are an entrepreneur, I mean, there's a certain law you might need to check out to ensure you're compliant, but you also, gird yourself up to readjust your strategy so that you can be fully compliant and effective in your businesses. So it is being a lawyer, being one of service to humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm also beginning to write because one of my mentors has been on my case. It says, you need to make time to contribute to knowledge. So I
But you
will
know
be.
that you write so much. I'm like, you already have a book. All this post on socials and all this. I'm like, girl,
Yeah,
just compile that. Like the book is already there. Like seriously.
absolutely. I agree with you. So I think for him, what he wants is bring all those posts together and package them in a way that they can be preserved and people can refer.
Yeah.
and and it's not all over the place, but there's a point of reference. So I want to be doing that, not this year though. I hope that maybe next year I'll be able to do that, perhaps
Mhm.
through research and a few papers being published or write with others, and
Yeah.
then eventually get into books and so on.
Mhm.
But I love that I am a leader as
Yeah.
well. So I've held several positions as
Mhm.
a founding president of the Pan African Game Changers,
Mhm.
which is a youth economic empowerment vehicle. So it's
Mhm.
everything empowerment, but not just empowerment. We want our young people to be economically empowered, because
Yeah.
it is one thing to be empowered in thought, it is one thing to be empowered academically and still
Right.
struggle to make it economically because you don't understand how the marketplace functions.
Yeah.
So that platform has reached over 12 African countries, and
Wow.
we've reached over 6,000 young people all
Mhm.
across the globe. But this goes on to show you that there's a hunger for African people to become a better people, to be self sufficient and
Right.
self reliant in their approach to life, because we've been born in poverty, we've been known to be a people that's disadvantaged. But I think that the mindset now needs to shift from being a poverty stricken society to
Mhm.
a self sufficient society that has an ecosystem that
Mhm.
can also build up for generations to come, because we need to leave legacies, and that's why Pan African Game Changers exists.
That's absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
people ask me, why do this podcast, Mercy? I'm like, this is the reason I do this podcast, is to bring people like you to the world. Not that you need any more visibility, but bring these ideas and conversations to the world, because it's so important to
Yeah.
see role models. It's so important to learn from
Yeah.
others and how
Yeah.
they've gone through life and what's made
Yeah.
them successful. And
Yeah.
so I know that Precious didn't just become this humanitarian, this lawyer,
Yeah.
and this game changer. Where did it all start from?
Believe it or not, I was born from a very humble family,
Mhm.
and my parents could only afford the bare minimum. I actually hosted some young children, top achievers from a local secondary school that's
Mhm.
not so far from our firm yesterday.
Yeah.
And I actually got to share, coincidentally, about my journey, because I went to a public school. That was one. And when I was in primary school, I was the top most achieving student in my class and
Why
overall.
am I not surprised?
But now listen to this interesting part of it.
Mhm.
Despite that, at home, because at the time we were a family of five
Mhm.
children. My
Mhm.
father was a fashion designer at Taylor, so you
Mhm.
can imagine how much he really was earning. And at the time, my mother was a stay-home mom, so there was just one income,
Mhm.
and there's five children, all school going. And
Mhm.
I remember that my father couldn't afford to get me a pair of shoes. So
Mhm.
I remember vividly in the year 2000, when I had won I had done so well in my PSLE, or primary school leaving
Mhm.
examinations,
Right.
and I needed. Then the school had a prize giving day, and I was asked to. Obviously, I needed to get up from where I was seated to go to
Mhm.
the front. So in
Yeah.
preparing for that, I realized my school shoes were torn. So
Oh.
I was not going to be able to confidently get up and go
Mhm.
and receive that gift. And I
Yeah.
remember, I don't know if you had getting a copper wire to sort
Yeah.
of sew behind the shoe,
Mhm.
just to make it,
Fit.
wearable for that
Right.
moment, for me to be able to get up and get the confidence to go and receive my gift. Again, remember, for me, I understood that my parents could only afford what they could, because that
Right.
was all that they could. But
Mhm.
instead of looking at that and thinking, oh my God, this is the end of me,
Mhm.
why do I have to struggle so much, and yet I'm doing well? For
Yeah.
me, that was the fuel to saying, I want to live a better life. I
Yeah.
want to be able to work hard, because the teachers kept on saying,
Mhm.
if you stay focused, you work hard, you can become something.
Yeah.
So for me, that's probably one of the things amongst the many other disadvantages I had,
Mhm.
primarily because I was coming from a very low income earning family.
Mhm.
It really was having sometimes to walk very long distance to
Mhm.
school, and
Mhm.
just realizing that it's okay that I have to go through this, but I
Right.
can change that. So
Exactly.
that is where Precious was born, and that is the backstory that most people never get to hear about.
That is such humble beginnings, and like
Yeah,
you said, for other people that could be the reason why they develop the mentality that they will not go anywhere and
yeah,
just become comfortable in that environment. But for
yeah,
others like you,
yeah,
it becomes the fuel to do better and to want to see something um, different for themselves
yeah,
and their posterity, and so on and so forth.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what makes you decide to go to law school?
And I'm so happy we're having this conversation again. I got to share with these young children yesterday because this question came up again, and I
Uh-huh.
said, believe it or not, I want to be a medical doctor.
Right.
So until I actually completed secondary school, the vision and the dream was always to be a medical doctor. But I
Mhm.
was so good with public speaking. I was so good with my literature. I was so good with my debate, because I was also part of the debate
Yeah.
team at school.
Mhm.
And I think my father was like, but you're so good. You're so articulate. You speak so well. And him and my sister sort of convinced me that wouldn't it be better that I pursued the law, and said, you love people, you love to hang, you have a bubbly character, and I
Yeah.
think you will do well, in a community where you have to come out. And
Yeah.
that's basically how I became a lawyer. So there was that diversion.
Mhm.
However, I still want to do my medicine degree.
Do you even have time to go back and do your medical degree at this point?
Honestly, that is the only thing that's keeping me away from it. But I think that at some point,
Mm.
once we get to that place where we have created
Yeah.
some sort of stability with some of the
Mhm.
businesses, then one can, I mean, give it a go. It doesn't hurt to
Exactly.
still fulfill that. And I was actually sharing yesterday again, and I said,
Mhm.
I actually remember that one of the newspapers wrote a story about me last year, and they called me the legal doctor because of the background story.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah,
such inspiration, and I think that most of us have had so many detours in our lives. I
yeah,
too, growing up, and I tell this story to people all the
yeah,
time, thought I was
yeah,
going to be a medical doctor. And that's what I grew up thinking. And I was like, I'm going to be an OBGYN. And that's what I thought I was going to be until, I moved to the US and I was going to school and I realized just how expensive medicine was going to be, and I was like, my parents cannot afford
yeah,
medical school. And so nursing was
yeah,
something that I did, that
yeah.
I fell in love with after
Mm,
I
mhm,
already started university, and also because of the circumstances. But when
yeah,
I look at it now and I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually so glad I went this route,
yeah,
because I've challenged myself in so many ways, and so many opportunities have become available to me that I
yeah.
didn't even dream about. I can't even say that I would only dream about, because they were not even in my purview of things that I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
dream
yeah,
about.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this detour has made my life so enriching, and I'm
Mm,
so grateful. And so, just to encourage other people who are maybe not necessarily in the place that they saw themselves when they were
yeah,
growing up, how do
yeah.
you build something that may not
Mm,
have been the first
mm,
thing that you thought about, and still be
mm,
good at it and still have an
mm,
impact in the world? Because I mean,
yeah.
you're having impact in so many areas, and you're doing it as a lawyer and not as a
Yeah,
medical doctor, which is what you thought you were going to be when you were
yeah.
younger.
Yeah. And maybe, and that's a beautiful question, and in fact to also demonstrate something. I think God, because I'm a spiritual person, God also has a perfect plan, and his perfect will sometimes plays out,
Exactly.
and we don't realize most times, because there's that thing that says my career is carved in stone, and
Exactly.
this is what I want to become.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually sharing, again, I'm going to speak about these young children yesterday, because our conversation is just flowing from that. And I said, you won't believe it, I wanted to not only be a lawyer, I also wanted to be a judge.
Wow.
um when I first got into the fraternity and I started practicing, that was supposed to be the end goal.
Yeah.
Now, having tapped to so many other things, where I'm sitting today, I'm like, do I really even want to be a judge? Why? Because as you're getting exposed to a wider world and your eyes open up, you begin to realize it's a world of endless possibilities. But
Exactly.
I think for me, what is key really as a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual person is I have always involved God, because God will always give me the roadmap as to
Mm-hmm.
what I should do and what where I should go. And I
Absolutely.
sometimes wonder, if I had gone the route of being a medical doctor, would
Yeah.
I be able to then share as much as I can share now?
Right.
Maybe not so much,
Exactly.
because the fraternity is a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
It's closed door, and most of what is done, there's that privacy that must be given to your patients. You can only maybe talk about, what you can, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't most likely tap into some of the things I've been able to tap
Tap
into.
into. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's important to also understand yourself,
Mm-hmm.
who you are, your abilities, your skills, what you're really passionate about. Are
Yeah.
you there? Yeah. And work towards a specific thing
Mm-hmm.
at a time, and make sure that you come out and be the best in that one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that will then open doors for you,
Right.
and you begin to tap into places you never thought you would. Some of the things I've done and I'm
Yeah.
doing, I never really thought that being a lawyer would open those opportunities, but
Absolutely.
it has, and my career has just
Mm-hmm.
taken a shape and a form I
Mm-hmm.
honestly didn't realize. But I think the other thing is to also follow your heart, follow what really sets your soul on fire. Yeah.
So, one of the things I've noticed about you is you're big on excellence. You're big on excellence, you're big on vision, you're
Yeah.
big on doing things well. Tell me, where
Yeah.
does that come from and how does that fuel your passion in everything that you do?
Thank you very much. I think this one I could say, it's coming from the relationship that my dad and I had. He was such a perfectionist. I
Mm,
always say that that man was wealthy because for everything that he did as a fashion designer,
mhm,
he would sew anything with the best stitch, or the best hem, and you'll iron it to the best of his ability. And when you look at this finished product, this suit, this shirt, this skirt
mhm.
that he made,
Yeah,
you could see, and you could see that this man has gone all out to produce this thing. and
absolutely.
and that's how he also became successful, because when he
Mhm,
started, it was a small business, and then it went into a whole industrial factory shop. So, but
mhm.
the dynamite was coming in really small packages, the
Yeah,
small things, going the extra mile,
mhm,
doing it differently. Even when people don't see it, you just do
mhm,
it because it is something that you also believe in, and
mhm.
it's going to speak for you. Because, like us lawyers, even
Mm,
tailors or businessmen, they work on referrals.
exactly.
So if you're gonna sew the best suits in town,
Yeah.
somebody is bound to ask, where'd you get
Where
that
did you
from?
get that from? Right? Exactly.
And they'll come, and the next person, and the
Mm,
beat goes on. So
yeah.
for me, I think I saw that with my father. He was
Hmm.
one very organized man. So I went to secondary school in Zimbabwe, but we lived here in Botswana.
Hmm.
It was all three of the elderly siblings that went to Zimbabwe. I
Yeah.
don't even know how he managed to do that,
Right.
because I remember at some point his monthly salary was about 100 and maybe $50.
Mm. Wow.
Now there's three of us going to boarding school in a foreign land,
Mm.
and we all need to be catered for
Mm.
everything that we needed for that 3 months that we are away.
Yeah.
So he was very systematic. He had plan, he
Mm.
would save, and
Mm.
he worked all the time.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
realized that from that $150, I still, up to now, I had a conversation with one of my siblings, and I say, I don't understand how this man was able to take us to boarding school, still take care of the family. Like, it doesn't make sense.
I know. It's like sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, I didn't know how our parents did it, really. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I come from a huge family. You're talking about five. I'm talking
yeah.
about eight people.
Oh yeah, we're seven now. At the time we were five. So I come from seven.
I'm like, I don't know how these parents did it back in the day,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
kudos to them.
Yeah.
They really worked so hard to really see their
Absolutely.
children go so far in their lives. And I have so much respect for my mom, for my dad,
Yeah.
all the
Mm,
sacrifices they made, and all the difficult
absolutely.
conversations talking about boarding school. I remember dad, at the beginning of semester, you had to write your budget for the things that you did
Yeah, you need.
that
Yeah.
you need. And then he would scratch things off. And I'm like, why are you even asking me to write?
If you're not gonna follow.
He'll be like, you don't need two shirts. You can get one shirt. You know?
One. Yeah. But the pearls or the lessons in that, the
Mhm.
ability to be resourceful, the
Yeah,
ability to plan and not be wasteful, the
yeah,
ability to use what you have. Because
absolutely.
sometimes there's
Mhm.
things that we think we really need that we don't.
That we really don't. That is so true.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Great. So many parallels here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you graduate law
Yeah.
school, you
Yeah.
decide to be a practicing lawyer. At what
Yeah.
point do you decide, I think Precious and Partners is a real thing and I should really go for it?
Very interesting question there. You know, I actually finished law school, and
Mm,
then I practiced in Botswana for 3 years.
yeah.
And I actually did so well in those 3 years. I made it to a junior partner. So
Oh, wow.
within three
That's,
years,
that's like decades for some people to make partner.
yes. So 3 years into practice, I make it to junior partner.
Wow.
Then I get married, and then my husband is British, so I have to move to the UK.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I then, after my dad passed on in 2017, I then joined my husband after that, in the UK. So the
Mm,
plan was to go work in the UK, settle down, build a
yeah.
family there. And
Hmm.
if you remember that time, it was during Brexit, when there was a
Yeah.
lot going on with the EU, and really economically things were not so stable. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't really know what would happen. So
Mm.
when I got there, I was honestly blessed to I got two good jobs there
Hmm.
with a legal 500 law firms there, which was also a blessing.
Hmm.
However, they were very short-term jobs, so it wasn't anything permanent. You'd be hired for a project, and I remember one of the projects I worked on was when they were rolling out the privacy data regulations in the UK. the
Mm-hmm.
GDPR regulations. And so you just work maybe for about 3 months or four months, and then the product project is done,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, good. And then a couple of months later, you're looking again for the next one. I was like, oh my God,
That's a
I
lot of, like, you have to be thinking about it almost every day. What's my next
all the
move?
time, all
Yeah.
the time. So I was like, okay, that's a little bit unstable.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband also was in the British, is still is in the
Mm-hmm.
British army.
Yeah.
So their job really evolved moving from one country to another. So
Yeah.
it meant that during that whole phase, I was always alone in the UK. So it didn't
Oh.
make sense for me
Mm-hmm.
to be miserable career wise and be miserable without my husband being there.
Yeah.
So so that is how I prayed about it, and I was
Yeah.
like, I think I could do better back in Botswana.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came back, I remember he had traveled. I can't remember if it was Cyprus. Yeah, he had gone
Yeah.
away. And when he came back, and I said, "Do you know what? I'm considering going back home to start
I
Precious."
cannot even imagine how that conversation went.
Now, because it's amazing because I
Mhm.
had prayed about it. I
Yeah.
was at peace about it. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I tabled it, he
Yeah.
answered as though he almost knew and he
Knew.
understood.
He was
That surprised
anticipating
me.
it. Right.
So, and then he literally picks up a piece of paper and scribbles the first P, the logo itself. That
Wow.
was him showing me that it's okay, you can come back to Africa.
Wow.
And that is how Precious and Partners was birthed on
Mm.
the 10th of April 2018 in my sister's living room, in a
Wow.
small, very small room with a
Mhm.
borrowed laptop, a borrowed printer.
Okay,
and
so
and
right there, um, a lot of people are waiting for like all the conditions to be right before they ever start anything. And
yeah,
here you are starting in your sister's living room with a borrowed
yeah,
computer and all of these things.
yeah,
Walk us through the courage that you
yeah,
must have had in that instance and just the audacity
yeah,
to say, you know what, we're doing
mm,
this. We may not have everything that we need, but this is the
yeah,
vision.
yeah. I think that I knew my
Mm-hmm.
capability in terms of my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that if I went out and I simply convinced one or two clients to give me work,
Mm-hmm.
I would survive.
Yeah.
And bear in mind that I had also lost my father, which meant
Right.
that I was also trying to help out my mother and my siblings back home. I
Right.
hope you understand our dynamics in Africa.
I completely understand.
So there was no room for failure in there because my
Yeah.
other sister was in China. She was doing her
Mhm.
economics degree. And
Yeah.
when dad died, she was halfway through her schooling. And I said to her, it's fine, I'll make a plan. So
Yeah.
in that moment, I
Mhm.
think the key thing is being decisive. And this is one trait that most people
Mhm.
take long to do. If
Yeah.
you are decisive, if
Mm.
you say, I'm going to do this and this is how I'm going to do it and I'm going to go for it, and you
Right.
put your heart, your mind, and
Mhm.
your efforts into it, I think that you cannot fail. So,
I love
for
that.
the key thing is to be decisive and
Mm.
know it's going to work.
Right.
And it says there's a saying that talks about being courageous to take the stair after
Mm.
you've taken that first step.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're not sure what
Mm.
the rest of the staircase looks like, but what's key is to take that first step.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So you are back in Botswana at this
yeah,
point, building
yeah.
your practice. And how do you now become this social entrepreneur in addition to building your empire of Precious and Partners? You proliferate, and it's funny because sometimes people get to know you once you've reached a certain stage, but you've been working in the background to build this brand. What were
Yes.
those years like where you were building, where you were not necessarily at the international stage, but you were
Mhm.
building and you had a vision of where you were going to?
Thank you so much. And that's an important question, and I hope that people can hear this from me because I realized that some of our career decisions were made because okay, maybe you had a mother or a sister that thought you'd be good at something,
Yeah.
but we didn't really have role models or
Hmm.
people that could guide us or help us get the courage to do certain things,
Yeah.
which meant that it became harder for us to even start off and do certain things or knock on doors because
Yeah.
we were never sure if would be accepted, if doors would be
Yes.
opened or slammed in our faces.
Hmm.
So most people would naturally deflect to the safe mode, which is not to even try.
Correct.
Now, my view really is that you cannot just sit there and you've learned something
Hmm.
and fail to share some of the learnings with other people.
Hmm.
So the idea was capture the woman. So when this Pan-African Game Changers was birthed, it was in September that very same year in 2018. So this
Yeah.
is about April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months into Precious and Partners. I said,
Yeah.
I've had a rough start. I've faced difficulties, but
Hmm.
eventually I could see that, okay, it looks like there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Hmm.
Why don't I bring young girls and help them gain the confidence, mentor them,
Hmm.
share some of this knowledge, some of these decisions I've had to make that have
Hmm.
been life changing,
Hmm.
with the hope that they will too become fearless. They will too become, the dreamers, the visionaries, the leaders, the
Right.
people that they want to be. But
Hmm.
how do you do that if they are not empowered? If they don't
Exactly.
have the confidence, if they
Hmm.
don't have the tools to know what to do in order to access a job, in order to start a business,
Yeah.
how to speak, how to brand, personal
Mhm.
branding,
Yeah.
what to say and how to say it, such that you then start to speak that corporate language, that
Exactly.
marketplace language,
Yeah.
because nobody teaches you that in class.
No one. Look, you get into the workforce and wait, there was not a module about this in class.
Yeah.
Of all
So
the
so
courses we took, I don't
you know
remember
what I
learning about
mean?
it.
So the heart was to say, let the young ones not struggle because we struggled,
Hmm.
because we're there. Let's help them become better and even do
Hmm.
better than us. And
Absolutely.
I have mentored so many amazing young people in Zambia, young
Hmm.
doctors. They're already serving in hospitals. I've
Yeah.
mentored lawyers. I have mentored so many young people, business people from all walks of life. And I
Hmm.
see the confidence. And just a week ago, two of them met for the first or second time in Malawi, and they sent me a video, and they
Oh
were just
wow.
saying, look at us, we're here together.
Hmm.
And you've created a sisterhood, a community of
Yeah.
young people that sort of beat us one, that understand that we need to go forward
Yeah.
together, not in singularity but
Yeah.
together, because if we really want to go further we have
Right.
to go together. So that is how my heart for social entrepreneurship came about, and
Hmm.
we've done so many projects, charitable ones,
Hmm.
through the we've done so much. I think I remember during COVID, we built a borehole in Zimbabwe at a clinic.
Hmm.
We've done so many amazing, incredible things through the same vehicle. And the
Yeah.
idea was to create an organization that is self sufficient. So even what we've been able to do, we
Yeah.
were not funded by anyone. It is
Oh my
us.
God.
Yes.
It takes a
Yes.
lot of money to do this type of work and a
Yes.
lot of human capital as well. How do you get
Yes.
people to buy into your vision?
I can tell you it's hard, but if you really get the right people and you yourself are willing to show them that this
Mhm.
thing works and the vision is crystal clear. I'm
Mhm.
a Christian and I say, I know what God says. He says, write the vision,
Make
you
it
know,
plain.
make it plain. So the first thing was to ensure we have a constitution. Now,
Mm.
my legal background comes into play. We have a
Right.
constitution, we've got clear objectives, we
Mhm.
understand the roadmap, and everyone that's coming to be part of us understands this is what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
And that obviously through Precious and Partners. And to be honest, I think Precious and Partners and the Precious Gondwe Foundation have been the biggest funders of some
Mhm.
of this social entrepreneurship work. So
Yeah.
I would travel to the different African countries to
Mhm.
launch them, to mobilize young people,
Mhm.
and to speak with them and to see what their social issues are. And
Mhm.
then say to them, listen, the idea that somebody else is going to come to save you doesn't exist.
It
Forget about
doesn't
it.
exist.
Yeah, I'm Angel Gabriel in human girl form. Nobody's coming to save you. It's time for you to get to work.
It's
Yeah,
time for you to get to work. That's
yeah,
amazing. And
yeah,
then, this whole concept of
yeah,
being a game changer,
yeah,
how important is that to you? And what does that really mean to you in terms of how
mm,
you carry yourself,
yeah,
how you motivate others, and
yeah,
how you lay the groundwork for what you're building?
yeah. I don't want to even lie and say to you that that's an easy thing to do.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
let's get it straight because you sometimes have to be tough.
Hmm.
You have to be resolute. And
Yes.
sometimes people just think that things are just going to fall from the
Mhm.
sky and
Yeah.
land on our tables and it's all honky dory.
Yeah.
It takes a heart and a mind that is made up, that is resolute, that
Yes.
is solution driven, that is action driven.
Yeah.
A mind that says, I'm going to get through that wall if I have to.
Hmm.
And for me, I think that a firm believer in saying, I can never fail. That's one of
Hmm.
my mantras.
Yeah.
Failure is not even an option.
Right.
As long as God has given us these two hands, and as long
Mhm.
as we can work, and as
Right.
long as we are all right in the
Mhm.
mind, and we have the
Yes.
ability to comprehend, to think,
Right.
there's no how we can fail. So
Right.
it takes a lot also to then pull everyone that believes in this vision
Mhm.
together with you, because there
Yeah.
will be resistance.
Mhm.
Others will feel that, African organizations always fail.
Yeah.
They always end up with issues financially. Someone has
Yeah.
taken money, misappropriated. The reputation
Don't get me
around
started on.
So the reputation around not-for-profit organizations is
Mhm.
not so good.
Yeah.
So I wanted us to build something that is our own,
Mhm.
and we are the ones putting in the money, so we will respect the foundation of
Yes.
what we're doing to the extent
Mhm.
that everyone that belongs to it has a
Mhm.
sense of ownership. So
Yeah.
that is how we cast it, a little bit
Mhm.
different from
Yeah.
your conventional organization, and
Yeah.
that has really worked wonders for us.
And I love how you talk about failure, but also look at it from the standpoint of these are just challenges and opportunities. And I
Yeah,
think a lot in roadblocks, those are the words I'm hearing you use.
yeah,
But a lot
yeah,
of the times, some people run into a roadblock or
mm,
experience a challenge as they're working towards something, and they
yeah,
call that failure and they stop. What I'm
yeah,
hearing from you is that you have
mm,
this resilience to push through the boundaries, push through the challenges, push
yeah,
through those opportunities that seem like they're not working, and really re strategize and
yeah.
change your mindset from thinking about it as failure, but maybe redirection or an opportunity to really craft something differently.
Absolutely, absolutely. They say that if you ever fail, you have the opportunity to get up and
Yeah.
do it better. And
Yes.
this time around, with the needed lessons, the
Hmm.
knowledge of how to do it differently. So
Yes.
failure is simply a learning curve.
Yes.
It's not really failure. And others say
Failure is just a
failure
learning curve. Everybody
is
who's listening, let me just put a plug on that. Failure is just a learning curve. Okay.
that's what it is. It is not the end of the world. It is also,
Yes.
it could also be called a redirection, as you put
Yes.
it.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply saying, if this is not working out, there's gotta be another way.
Mm.
There's gotta be another
There's
way.
got to be another way. So
But yeah,
you've done so well with
yeah. Thank
your
you. Thank you so
career.
much.
Very, very impressive. You
Yeah,
win all these amazing awards, but
yeah.
I also hear from you that impact is more important than just winning the awards for the
Absolutely.
sake of awards.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you manage um in this day and age where everyone is about accolades and all of these things, how do you
Mm.
manage chasing accolades versus really having impactful work that then attracts the accolades?
And thank you so much. Actually, as I was driving home and I was with my little sister, we actually had a conversation because I was actually nominated. There's a global entrepreneurs festival going on in Nigeria, and I
Mhm.
think it's a 3 day, if not 5 day, because I think it started on Wednesday. It's probably
Yeah.
going to end over the weekend. I don't know if you've caught wind of it. And I
No.
was also nominated there. Blessing,
Mhm.
it's just humbling. However, I was saying to my little sister earlier, I said to her, "Whew, this is overwhelming because it's a lot of things, and I honestly cannot be
Mhm.
everywhere with everybody doing this
Yeah.
thing. There's far greater important things
Mhm.
that take precedence." So for
Yeah.
me, really, remember, Mercy, when I started this thing, it
Mhm.
really wasn't so much about recognition. It was
Exactly.
about service. It really was about helping my family out. It
Mhm.
really was about saying, let me get by and build
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And that's why, even when the very first nomination came from Nigeria and I'm in Botswana, it just didn't make sense, because I
Right.
remember when the email came and then a follow up email came, I
Mm.
was like, what is this? And, it really came by surprise. I was
Yeah.
like, Ruth in the fields,
Yeah.
picking up corn,
You're
minding
like, who
her
is observing
business.
me? Where's
You
Lois?
understand? Yeah, yeah. And it's always been that.
Yeah.
And this is why every time these things come, I'm grateful. That's not
Yeah.
to take away from that
Mm.
recognition. But at the same time, I think that let the real work speak for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
Because that is what is really more impactful. That
Mhm.
is what really changes the world.
Yeah.
The award is just there maybe to encourage you, to
Mhm.
help you go on, but it's
Yeah.
really not the ultimate prize.
Exactly.
There's just more to do for humanity. There's
Mhm.
more to do to grow our wealth and build legacies.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's more important
Mhm.
than simply then ending up chasing all these things.
Mhm.
And sometimes I literally, this is an
Mhm.
open secret, I do decline
Mm.
when I'm not sure what this is about, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it means for the brand,
Exactly.
for myself, for the
Right.
values I represent. So just because you're seeing the ones I've accepted, I have a fair share of those
Of
I've
the ones
also
you right.
respectfully declined. Yeah,
So for me, that speaks to your values.
yeah,
Because you're not just about amassing these accolades, you're also asking yourself, how are they aligning with what I stand for, what I represent,
yeah,
in the brand, as you were talking about.
yeah, yeah.
So, what do you identify as your values, your guiding
Mm.
principles in life?
Beautiful. You want me to preach? I can preach right now.
You can give us a short, sweet version of the 2 hour sermon.
I tell people, for me, the ultimate goal is to make it to heaven. I said I'm
Yeah.
Christian, very much saved. And
Yes.
the Bible says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?
Absolutely.
Um, I always am very mindful of my spirituality.
Yeah.
I know that what God has been able to do and to give so far is
Yeah.
vindicated by the way that I live,
Mm-hmm.
the things that I do, the
Mm-hmm.
associations that I keep, because life is very spiritual. So I
Absolutely.
am very picky about where I find myself. I
Mm-hmm.
am very picky about the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I and people know, as much as I'm outgoing, but I'm also very conservative. I always say
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit old school in a way. People might even say, but you're boring. How come you don't do these things that other people do?
Yeah.
And of course, being a child of God, I have the other side that's very spiritual and very opinionated about the
Yes.
do's and don'ts, what the Bible says we must do and what we must not do. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to compromise because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm in a space where I'm expected to do certain things or to
Mm-hmm.
be somebody else.
Yeah.
So you might have a tough time convincing me to even be that,
Exactly.
and I'm grateful for that, because I think that these values, these Christian
Mm-hmm.
values, have vindicated me, have
Yes.
preserved me,
Mm-hmm.
and if anything, I always have the confidence to go to God about
Yeah.
everything that I do, knowing all too well that He's involved. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't go out and mess around and then start going to God, oh God, help me, oh God. I
Yeah.
make sure that I'm backed up by the heavens, so that if
Yeah.
things go wrong, I go back to God, the
To God.
Creator,
Mm-hmm.
and say,
Yeah.
Lord, you said I could do this. Please fix it,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. You know?
Yes. Exactly. And I love just how you wear your heart on your sleeves. And sometimes it's so hard to navigate
Yeah.
religion or spirituality in the
Yeah.
marketplace and in the workplace. And,
Mm.
I'm like that. And I always tell people that I know what I believe and I respect
Yeah.
what other people believe, but I know what I know is
Yeah.
true for me. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate how you've been able to navigate that space, because sometimes people can think that it's being alienating of other people, but it's really
Mm.
just you understanding what works for you, and knowing that that's how you want to live your life as well.
Absolutely. And I was gonna say, I think for you it must be harder because you guys there are a bit too liberal. You allow everything is, you have to accept things you shouldn't even be accepting, and the environment, I can imagine it takes a lot, and
It takes a
kudos
lot
to
to
you.
navigate. Yes.
But I think
Absolutely.
also, yeah.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I remember that when I started the film, somebody said you might have to tone down about this God thing of yours,
Yeah.
this Jesus thing of yours. And I said, excuse me?
Hmm. Like, why can they not be um co- like, what, these are not mutually exclusive, you know what I mean? Like, we can have conversations.
And tell you what, Dr. Mumba,
Yeah.
people relate with the humanness and the
Mhm.
realness of a person.
Exactly.
I have been able to service companies, corporates,
Mhm.
individuals, private persons, governments, international clients from
Yeah.
all walks of lives, from
Right.
different religions. And some of
Exactly.
them have met me through this very platforms where
Exactly.
I speak about who I am, and
Mhm.
they actually still are drawn to who I am and what I
Yes.
do, and they
Hmm.
appreciate it. And I think
Exactly.
that sometimes Christians,
Hmm.
they self sabotage their
Hmm.
own spirituality
Yeah.
by hiding their
Mhm.
light and putting it under a bushel so that it
Yeah.
doesn't shine that brightly, or so that people are not sure whether you're hot or cold.
Yeah.
And I tell people, most spiritual people, regardless of the religions that
Mhm,
they belong to, despite
mhm,
their beliefs, are
mhm.
very much accepting of a person who embraces their spirituality, for your own
Absolutely.
information.
Exactly.
So I've never seen that even as a problem,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, as long as your values are clear, integrity, what you do, you are ethical,
Right.
professional,
Mhm.
you are respectful,
Yeah,
humanity will be drawn to you based on those principles.
exactly.
And of course, what then
Your
keeps
work
you.
as well. Your work will always speak for itself, regardless of what you believe in all of these things. At the end of the day, are you able to deliver for your clients?
Deliver.
Are they satisfied with your work? That's what's
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I hope and I pray that as Christians as well,
Yeah,
people can embrace the spirituality. It's such a beautiful place. It
yeah.
brings healing, it brings hope. We do
Hmm.
some of the things the way we do them because there's a supernatural power, a higher power that we
Hmm.
believe in, and we do these things to serve humanity. So it's such
Exactly.
a beautiful thing.
I absolutely love that. So
Yeah.
Moses wants to know, Moses is in the chat. He wants to know, what are some of the challenges you have had at some point in your career that were bigger than your team, and how have you navigated those challenges?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. And I think just to speak about what you just said right now, that at
Hmm.
the end of the day, your work speaks for you. A
Yeah.
person will always know their capacity to
Hmm.
handle a case, to do a
Yeah.
matter, the
Hmm.
cans and the don'ts. And we've sometimes found ourselves in a position where we're handling matters beyond or outside our expertise. And
Yeah.
I think the smartest thing that we've had to do to resolve or to solve that is
Hmm.
outsource it.
Yeah.
As much as you want to make as much money in your business, if somebody wants an expert in medical
Hmm.
law, and
Exactly.
you only have the basics and you're not
Hmm.
able to get into the deeper stuff,
Yeah.
outsource it.
Exactly. Hmm.
And so the biggest problem is that most, especially in Africa, I know the US
Hmm.
might just be different. In Africa, you don't want to lose any client,
No.
regardless. And I think that that was just one of the challenges where you have a very complicated transaction
Hmm.
and you know what you're able to do. So the smartest thing is get an expert. You might have to share your fee, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you are going to deliver a
Mhm.
quality service and a product and output. So for me, I always believe that if
Mhm.
there's people that have gone ahead, why not learn from them? Some of
Exactly.
the challenges, I think it's also learning to navigate the human capital space.
Mhm.
So I've been told that I'm such a naturer. So I'm very empathetic.
Mhm.
If you meet me by the streets and you
Yeah.
say I need a job, I'm going through a tough time, you might get a job easily. That's
Yeah.
me. you
Yeah.
know but the downside of that, especially
Mhm.
in human capital or in just resourcing, in terms of just
Management.
hiring
Yeah.
employees, is that now that challenge that they're having,
Mhm.
that you think you want to solve by giving them a job,
Yeah.
you then blindsides you to not then look at the character of the person, the skills,
The
and
skills
their
and all.
capabilities, and then you hire them and bring them into
Mhm.
a business setup where they're not able to perform, they're not able to upscale themselves, and
Yeah.
you unfortunately have to part ways.
Mhm.
So that has been heart-wrenching, because
Yeah.
really, when you bring people into your vision, you're
Mhm.
hoping that they are skilled, or at least even if they have the bare minimum, at least they'll be able to fit in. But
Mhm.
we learn, and I've learned over time,
Yeah.
that it is not everyone that's going to
Mhm.
buy into your vision or what you're doing.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to allow yourself the grace to not even get involved. I don't do any hiring anymore, which is a
Mm.
blessing. Uh, but of course, I think that was one of the biggest challenges because I
Mm-hmm.
feel for people so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I never want to turn someone down because I know what it is to look for a job maybe for a very long time
Right.
and not get it. And now worse still, some people want to come on board because you are
Yeah.
this well-known person out there. So the belief is that all is well. So when people come
Mm.
in, they don't have to really work hard. And
Yeah.
then they get the shock of their lives because I am
Like, oh
results
no, we're like
driven.
working. They're like, you make it look so easy when you post on Facebook. I'm like, we're grinding
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
Like, this is
And
how your schedule looks
so
like. I'm like, yeah.
it's them coming in and getting disappointed when I now demand
Mhm.
results because
Yeah,
results speak for themselves. You have to work
exactly.
hard, and
Yes.
you must be able. Sorry, you must be
Mhm.
able to measure what you do because we measure
Exactly.
everything. If you can't
Mhm.
measure it, then you don't need it. It's that
Exactly.
simple. So we
Absolutely.
measure everything that we do, and if we can't measure it, then we
Mhm.
eliminate it. And or yeah. So and I think in Africa it's a bit different because most people are not paid per hour like overseas.
Mhm.
So once you employ someone, they're there throughout the month with you, whether they're performing or not. You still need to pay, and
And
you
you're like,
know.
wait, like the value for the output, they're not matching.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the joys there is having to have also
Mhm.
groomed a lot of young
Yeah.
people that have made it. Some have
Mhm.
come through us and they've gotten other opportunities. And it's
Yeah.
always good to watch and good to see
Mhm.
that as a result, we've been able to provide employment, we've been able to
Yeah.
provide a place for people to start off, discover
Mhm.
themselves,
Yeah.
and also create jobs, man, in the wake
Yeah.
of unemployment. Just
Mhm.
knowing we're able to contribute to just take care of our communities, for me that's really humbling. Yeah.
Awesome. I know we're winding down, but
Yeah.
Malinga has one question for you before we jump into your pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
What are the challenges of being a woman in your field and leading in the capacity that you're in?
Wow, thank you so much. I initially, when this thing started, again being the person that I am, very outgoing,
Yeah.
very extroverted in a way, although
Yeah.
an ambivert. Sometimes I want to retract into my cocoon.
Yeah.
Is that people tend to think you are out to get their piece of pie,
Of course. Yeah.
and then
And
you
you're like, there's
get
enough pie for everyone.
everyone. So you get people either trying to sabotage you and trying
Hmm.
to make it very difficult for you to enter into the market. I
Yeah.
mean, I literally even had somebody call me and tell me, who do you think you are that you're
Oh my
entering into this?
goodness.
So sometimes it's actually,
Mhm.
unfortunately, although that stigma has been
Yeah.
made to relate more with men,
Hmm.
unfortunately you find that is actually women that choose to not support other women.
Can we just pause there because I see it all the time.
Yeah,
And I'm like, why are we not supporting each other? The men are
yeah,
supporting each other. They're giving
yeah,
each other opportunities. They're recommending each other for opportunities. But the
yeah,
women, like, we're the ones who are trying to pull each other down and
yeah,
put roadblocks in each other's way and talk bad
yeah,
about each other. And I'm like,
yeah.
how do we change that?
And women need to understand yet again that we all need each other. And I think
Exactly.
once we get that, we'll realize that it's been hard for all of
Mhm.
us as
Yeah.
women. In the first place, women needed to fight to just simply get a seat at the table. And I was
Exactly.
actually going to share, this is my current read. This is a South African writer, Nolita
Mm-hmm.
Fagude.
Yeah.
She's a corporate activist here. She
Mm-hmm.
has
What is the
advocated
title?
for
I want to write it down
uh,
so I can read it.
boardroom dancing.
Okay.
Boardroom dancing.
Sounds
I can
interesting.
actually get you one and hopefully mail it to you.
Awesome. That would
Um,
be wonderful.
Yeah. So she's a corporate activist, and all
Mm-hmm.
she really did was advocate
Mm-hmm.
for women inclusion and, the ability to have women also participate fully in this boardrooms, fully in this decision making
Mm-hmm.
hallways, and making sure that a woman's voice is really amplified. And she's done
Yeah.
a good job,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the corporate space as an
Yeah.
activist, you can imagine.
Wow.
And her idea was also to say, as women come together,
Mm-hmm.
realize that the fact that you've made it into that boardroom, that's an opportunity for you to ensure that you create further opportunities for other
Correct.
women, and not vice versa.
Mm.
I have gotten more support from men than
Yeah.
women.
And that's unfortunate. Honestly, that is
Yeah.
unfortunate. And we need to do
Yeah.
better.
We need to do better. And I think that we need to stop thinking we're each other's competition, because
Mhm.
at the top, they say people are no longer competing but
Yes.
collaborating.
Collaborating. Absolutely.
And that's the heart, that should be the mindset. And I've
Mhm.
been asked, but why do you share so much? And I say, because at some point I did not have this knowledge, and I would wonder, how come
Yeah.
I didn't know this? And I wonder
Mhm.
how many other people don't have this kind of knowledge,
Mhm.
and why should I not share? Because even if I've shared, are they going to
Yeah.
do the same thing as I? Well and
Mm.
good if they decide to do that, but are they going to do it
Mm.
exactly like Precious and Partners?
Yeah.
Definitely not. So I lose
Mm.
nothing, absolutely nothing.
Mm.
Yep. I lose nothing from
Mhm.
sharing um, these pearls.
Right. Oh my goodness. Okay. We have come to the top of the hour. I don't want us to stop, but it's like we could go on and on and on, and have these conversations. And I'm so excited that you have absolutely made time for us. I have learned so much from you, Precious. I cannot believe 1 hour is already up. I feel like we could continue having this conversation. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined in.
Yeah.
As a matter of bringing us to a close, give us
Yeah.
your 3 to 5 pearls of wisdom that you want to leave with our audience today.
Thank you. One of my favorite quotes, and this one is really power packed. So I'll
Mhm.
share one because it sort of sums up everything that we should aim to become. And
Yeah.
it says that we must come to a place of solidity.
Hmm. And we must come to a place of solidity. We're waiting for Precious to complete her sentence. Um, give us just a second. And while we're waiting to get Precious back, thank you everybody for being here. This has been our November fireside chat, talking to the one and only Precious Gondwe about being a game changer. And we have touched on so many different conversations. And our next fireside chat is right before Christmas, and we're excited about that. I have a special guest. I hope that you will be able to join us for that as well. I believe it's going to be December 23rd. And we will give Precious just a few more seconds to log in. I see that she's trying to log back in, and we'll go from there. There you go. We have you back.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah, you're back.
Yay, yay.
Yay,
Thank you
we're
very
excited.
much. Yeah, so I was saying my favorite quote, and this is
Hmm.
a mantra I live by.
Yeah.
Really, it says that we must come to a place of solidity
Hmm.
and impregnability where
Hmm.
success is guaranteed. See, a
Mm.
place where you are solid, you are
Hmm.
grounded, you
Mm.
can't be shaken, and you cannot fail because you have decided, you're
Hmm.
resolute in your
Yes.
position, in your stance, in
Hmm.
what you want to achieve. So you are in pursuit of something, and
Exactly.
nobody can talk you out of it.
Mm.
Circumstances cannot talk you out of it.
Yeah.
Negativities cannot talk you out of it. Your
Mm.
friends and people around you who don't believe in the vision cannot take you
Mm.
out of it. You
Yeah.
have made up your mind. I am who I am and I will become. So
Absolutely.
once we get into that place, I
Hmm.
can tell you amazing things will happen. There's no how we can fail. Success is guaranteed for sure.
Woo. I don't know if I even want to add anything after that. I'm just going to say thank y'all for being here and absolutely loving this conversation. Precious, I
Yeah,
appreciate you making time. I know that this weekend is a busy weekend for you.
yeah,
Wishing
yeah,
you all the success and safe
yeah,
travels tomorrow. And
yeah,
congratulations on yet another award. This has
yeah.
been enlightening. The comments in the chats are amazing. Just
Thank
absolutely
you.
loved it.
Awesome.
And we will
Yes.
see everyone next month at our next fireside chat. For now, bye bye.
Bye.